Hi there. My name is Paul Van Metre, and I have been in the machining business for my entire career. And I used to be a machinist myself and a machine shop owner, and now I'm a software founder that helps other machine shops. But I'd love to talk with you a few minutes today about why I love the industry so much, a little bit about my story, and why I think that manufacturing careers and machining careers in particular are such a great option for kids these days. So first of all, let me share something that just I absolutely love about the machining business. So everything that's man-made in the world starts in one way or another with machining. I know it's hard to wrap your head around that, but so bear with me a minute here. So let's take an obvious one. So here's my iPhone right here. This phone is made up of a bunch of machine parts, and the main thing is the case. So this is an iPhone 6 case. And if I hold that up to the screen, you can even see the machining marks. So this is machined out of a solid chunk of aluminum. They make millions and millions of these things. Here's another example. You guys are probably familiar with things like a Surface tablet, right? The Surface tablet, the case for that is also made up of machined parts. So here is an example of the inside and the outside of the back of a Surface device. So you can even see all those machining marks, these lines on the floor. Those are made up of the actual end mills that are spinning and cutting metal. I just love that. Even my hoodie, or your favorite hoodie, is made by big industrial sewing machines, and those machines are made up of all machined parts. So whether it's something as obvious as a phone or not as obvious as a shirt or anything else, you can believe that somewhere in the stream of making that product, machining is somewhere in that. So I just love that part about everything in the world being started with machining and metal. So it's just kind of always percolates in the back of my mind. So let's talk about how I fell in love with machining. I didn't know I was going to get into this trade. I actually originally got into school because I loved cars so much. So I was going to study engineering, but I decided to go to a different kind of program, a little bit more hands-on, like industrial design program, industrial technology program. And I actually got to design and build race cars. And then I would compete with those cars and my buddies against other universities. It was so much fun, and we learned a ton about manufacturing and machining. So here is an example of one of the cars that we built. This was a Formula SAE race car. It's a little 450-pound race car powered by a turbocharged motorcycle engine. Really, really fast, so much fun to build, and it has tons of machined parts in it. So let's take a look at some of those. So this is a picture of one of the corners with the suspension and the brakes and the uprights and the shocks and the suspension arms and the steering, and all these parts are machined. In fact, sort of on the right-hand side of the screen there's a little curved thing that has some bolts going through it, and that is called an upright. Let me turn my screen back on. So it's over here. So this thing right here, this is one of those. This one is black anodized, so it has a nice black finish on it. But I can actually pull this apart, and this is made up of two pieces of machined aluminum. And if I put the light on it, you can also see the machining marks down in the bottom of the pocket there. So we started with two plates of aluminum, put them on the machines, and designed them first with CAD software. And then we programmed them with CAM software. And we went out on the machines at school and we machined these. And then we would actually bond them together with an adhesive. And then that would get bonded into the chassis. And that became one of the components that made the chassis. So we made all sorts of parts like that. It was just so much fun. And my partners and I my buddies decided to become business partners and start a business starting a machine shop. So I'll show you some pictures of that shop in just a second. But what did we need to know when we wanted to get into this business? So in the program that we did, we, of course, took machining classes. We learned how to use manual lathes and manual mills. And then we moved on to CNC mills and lathes. And of course, we learned CAD software and CAM software for computer-aided design and computer-aided manufacturing. And we learned how to program those machines to make the parts that we needed to make for our cars. We had to have, of course, basics in math and science and materials. Now, as business owners as well, we had to learn some other stuff. Now, I'll be honest, we didn't know we were going to start a business until like the last few months of school. So we didn't actually take all that many management and marketing and sales classes. That was more just sort of trial by fire in the trenches as we started to grow and run our business. But I will say I would recommend taking some sales classes regardless of what industry you get into. Basically, if you think about it, everyone always kind of needs to be selling. So if let's say you go get a 2-year machining degree and then you're out applying for jobs, you're selling yourself to those companies that you want to hire you. So having some good sales skills is always good, but definitely go through the math, go through the sciences. So here's an example of using math. Doesn't have to be anything super crazy like calculus, but we used to say I was going to quote a part like this. I would need to take the measurements of the height, width, and length, and then multiply that by the density of the material. In this case of aluminum, it's 0.098 pounds per cubic inch. And then I'd multiply that by, say, $3 a pound, because that's the price of aluminum at the time. And so I'd have to multiply that to figure out the price that I'm going to charge my customer for the material cost for making that part. So math and science definitely useful. And so anyway, those are just some of the things that I think a machinist needs to know when they get out into that industry. So here's a little bit about our shop. On the left-hand side, you can see our empty space, little tiny 2,000 square foot warehouse without even any paint on the walls yet. And then on the right, we can see what it looked like after we put the machines in and some extra equipment. And so this was back in 1997, so I'm dating myself a little bit. But there's our team on the left-hand side. We even had a shop dog. And this picture on the right is just so funny. I found this. Look at that sweet old CRT monitor and that old-fashioned phone there. So this is how we started. And we just started going out and looking for business. These pictures right in the middle, those are a bunch of latches for an aircraft. Those latches are put into the galley area to hold the doors closed. On the right-hand side, we can see some parts that were for an aftermarket shifter kit for a car. Those were kind of fun to make. And then on the left-hand side, I don't know why we had this, but that was maybe our first birthday. We made a cake with our logo on it and even put it in the machine to take pictures. So that was a little bit silly. Now, our path, like I said earlier, is a little different than many, but we eventually started building some software to help run our company, to run our machine shop, because we couldn't find any software that we thought was worth buying. So we hired a software developer and we told him what we wanted it to look like, and he started building that. And over the years, as we grew, we got to make lots of cool parts, and we hired lots of people like machinists and inspectors and people in purchasing and people in customer service and people in our shipping and receiving departments. So there's so many different career jobs that are in manufacturing. Now, the parts we made were just sort of the coolest part of it all. These parts are really high-end fly fishing reels for deep sea saltwater fishing. They have beautiful anodized finishes, really intricate machining. Keep in mind, these are all made out of solid chunks of aluminum and then all put together at the end. This part right here is a saxophone mouthpiece. We made these for clients, and these were machined out of solid brass on a 5-axis CNC mill, and then gold plated and some white gold plating on some of the other parts, and all assembled up. These parts cost $750 at retail. So just a lot of work went into these. They were absolutely beautiful to make. These parts here, this is a little assembly that we made lots of. This is a video arm assembly for a first-class seat that you might see on an international flight. So right on the top there with those 4 holes, that's where a monitor would mount, and someone in their fancy seat would be watching that video on these parts that we machined for them. This is a cool part that went into a helicopter, a military helicopter. So this went into the cockpit area, and those little slots in the middle, those would be where the electrical components, the circuit boards would be put. But this is built out of a solid chunk of metal and it has some special finishes on it to protect it, keep it from corroding. This part here is machined out of solid plastic. We did this in our prototype department. And this is actually the housing for a boat with the throttles on the left and right hand side. So when they're turning the engines on and going up full speed on the boat, this was the enclosure that held all the electronics for that throttle body. Pretty cool. And then here's some other assemblies that we'd actually designed and built. So the one on the left is for repairing the damage on the leading edge of an aircraft wing. And the one on the right is a pop-up a pop-up food tray table for like a business class seat as well. So lots of really neat little parts that all came together. Now, again, our path is a little different than many. And so over the years, we kept building our software, and then eventually one of our machine shop customers asked us to sell it to them. So we decided, after some convincing, that we will give that a try. And they saved lots of time and lots of money, and it really helped their business. So they started recommending our software to other customers. And we sold it a few more times, and eventually we decided to sell our machine shop. So this is kind of a snapshot of what we looked like at the time when we sold the business. And then we went off and started a software company that would support other shops just like ours. So we've had a lot of really fun and great growth over the last few years here, with nearly 250 customers in total now. So that's a little bit about our shop. Let's look at some pictures of some other shops and what it's like to work in a machine shop today. So this is one of our customers. They have probably the most beautiful shop I've ever seen. And I will say that not every shop is quite as beautiful as this, but this is a company called Roush Yates. They make the Ford NASCAR engines that are used in all the Ford NASCAR race cars. And so here's a picture on the right-hand side of the engine, but beautiful shop. You could eat off these floors. Just a beautiful, pristine facility. Not everything, again, is quite that nice. Here's some other pictures of shop. This is another customer of ours. You can see nice white painted floors, some machines, a computer right there in front of the machine where they're accessing our software and other, CAD and CAM software. So definitely using computers all day long. Here's another picture of an inspection lab with a coordinate measuring machine that's inspecting the parts. And then, of course, other software there on the screen to make sure everything is high quality. So that's just a few pictures of what a shop might look like today. So manufacturing careers and machining careers in particular are some of the highest paid jobs out there. I think I read recently that the average manufacturing career makes about 13% more total compensation than your average non-manufacturing job. And you can get these jobs relatively easily by going into a 2-year technical college, a machining program, or welding program, or something like that. They're far less expensive than a 4-year college. You'll be out of school in just 2 years instead of 4, and virtually guaranteed to find a good job in the exact thing that you've studied. You won't be saddled with thousands of dollars worth of student loans. And the demand right now is just so incredibly high that you're virtually guaranteed to get a job in your field of study if you go through a program like that. Like I said, we have about 250 customers, and almost all of them are absolutely dying for employees and are happy to pay good wages to people that are interested and excited to come work for them. So the desk job that a lot of people might go into, I don't think is as fun, as exciting than working with machinery and tools and making stuff all day long. A lot of shops these days are using robots, lots of really cool high-tech machinery, of course. And just think about a lot of you probably been watching the SpaceX launches lately. Those rockets are made out of entirely machine parts and high-tech electronics. So imagine making something that's going to go out into space, or maybe even all the way to Mars. That is just too cool, in my opinion. So I would suggest and encourage you to go visit a local technical college or a local shop. If you just Google it, there's going to be lots of machine shops probably near you, and they will be happy to invite you in and check it out. Even once a year, there's a day called Manufacturing Day, where shops around the country open up their doors to people that want to learn more about the machine shop trade. So definitely check that out. I want to say thank you for spending a little bit of time with me today. I hope my enthusiasm for this trade in this industry rubbed off a little bit on you. If you have any other questions, my personal email is right here on the screen, and I would be happy to receive an email from you, and I promise I will personally reply. So thank you so much for listening and spending some time, and hope to see you in the machining business.